lovely stuff. Hey, Danny, how you doing, man?
Hello, Lewis. I'm well. How are you?
I'm very well, and I'm exceptionally well because today we are joined by Kirsty. How you doing, Kirsty?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent.
Yes.
I'm glad that was a nice awkward introduction. I like that we keep it strange, we keep it a bit awkward.
Yeah.
There's no better way to do it, really, I don't think.
No.
No, we're all right. We're all doing well. That's
We
good.
are.
Keep the guests uncomfortable. That's my motto, you know.
Yeah, you have to do an icebreaker at the start of every conversation to start the conversation. Then as you walk away, you say something upsetting to really reset that ice. That's how you've got to interact with guests. Yep.
No, absolutely. So what we're doing today is a wee interview with Kirsty, obviously, and we just have some questions for you and answer them in any way you want.
Yeah, it's not a grilling. It's not a
No,
grilling.
no.
At all. It'll be lovely. It's like tea.
Yeah, imagine we're in Downton Abbey and
Yeah.
we're sat there with what's her name, Maggie Smith, and we're having some tea and cake,
Yeah.
and we're not grilling you.
No,
Not at all.
no, just some backhanded comments to question your self-confidence.
Oh God, I'm sweating already.
Am I right to start us off, Lewis? Is that?
Yeah, of course. How about, first of all, though, should we just quickly say, Kirsty, who are you? What do you do? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Who the hell are you and why are we talking to you?
What are you here for?
What are you here for?
What do you want?
I'm here to, I don't know, give myself a plug or something, I don't know. No, I'm an actor, I'm a writer, director, and I'm also a voice coach. So I'm hoping that it's not a jack of all trades, master of none type scenario, but we'll soon find out.
Yes, definitely.
Indeed.
Lewis held me back there. I was just wanting to get straight in. What is?
Yeah.
I mean, just completely ignore the subtext. But thanks for being
Well
here.
then, Danny, I'll set the dogs free. You are more than welcome to ask your first question now, Danny.
Thank God. First question I have for you is it's a big one. What does acting mean to you?
Oh yeah, I mean, you're just starting off easy, aren't you? Now?
Deep
Yeah,
end.
and after you've done with that one, what is the meaning of life?
Yeah.
please?
Yeah, the big existential question, and it is, because I don't want to get all too deep and meaningful with all this, but it is a kind of lifeline for me anyway, in many ways. But ultimately, I think because it's about connection a lot for me, because it's hugely collaborative. You're working with so many different people to serve a story. Typically, that's how it works. Even when you're doing like one-person shows and things like that, it's still hugely collaborative. You're serving a story, and for me, it's kind of it's one of the best ways for me to become present and go into moment by moment truth telling and be really just in the moment and be completely present, because and a lot of times in life we get in our heads and we get forward thinking or backwards thinking or whatever we do, and
Definitely.
it's just a great way to ground and get present and service a story and explore different things. I mean, it's a way of connecting with other people, and when you connect with an audience, because it depends on what you're working on. If you're working on a drama that's exploring really important issues and that resonates with someone and you know, inspires them or motivates them or makes them think about something or makes them feel something, or if you're just doing something that's purely for entertainment value but you're making someone really laugh and you're bringing relief to their day, and it's a way of really connecting both when you're actually working on the thing. Let's say if it's for film or television and you're working with a crew and, you know, other cast members and you're working as part of a team, and then when it goes out there, there's that connection as well, the connection it makes to the audience, and then you might get feedback on that, if you know, and so it's really all of that combined, and the sheer love and the joy and the play of it, you know. I mean, it's what when we were kids, we just play, you know.
Yeah.
And it's, I suppose, part of it is just to keep that going. Plus, I was really attention seeking as a child, and I don't think it's disappeared, to be honest.
It's only grown.
Just grown, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's brilliant.
What you were just yes, but also going back to what you were saying about being a sort of a jack of all trades and all the rest of it. We are aware that one of the many things that you do, one of those is as you work as a voice coach, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And what sort of propelled you into doing that? Was there something that sort of made you want to pick that specifically, or was it like an evolution, or?
Yeah, I mean, I was always interested in voices as a kid. I was a real mimic, and I loved accents, and I loved different voices. And if I found something interesting in the way somebody said something, I would try and parrot it back exactly as they had said it, and I still do that. And then I got the opportunity to take on additional voice electives during my acting training, and sort of as a side training, as additional courses, and got really fascinated by it and really interested in it. And then, but didn't ever set out to coach in any way, and then was asked to work with someone, and it went really well, and then they recommended me to someone else, they recommended me to someone else, and so on, and then someone else approached me, and then I thought, well, this is actually taking all of that training that I've done alongside the work that I do as an actor, and applying it, and it's a nice sort of thing to be doing, you know, alongside the other work that I do, and it sort of links back to the other work that I do in some ways. And it's not just, you know, voice coaching that I do. I also do presentation skills training, and I work with young actors as an acting coach as well. So yeah, it's a really nice thing to do, I've found, and I get a lot of joy out of it.
Well, that's lovely. I think it is a lovely thing when you sort of you see all of your skills sort of come together, and you think, if only there was a way I could do all of these things there is! Oh my goodness! And then you sort of stumble into it that way. It's such a lovely thing.
No, definitely. I mean, in the evolution of like doing voice coaching, is there a particular accent that's very difficult to teach, to try and get students to be engaged with?
I don't think from my perspective it's necessarily difficult to teach, but I would say the one that I think is more difficult for people to learn is probably within Scottish. You know, particularly if they start to go for something that's really regional. But even standard, like even what is now considered standard Scottish, I think it's more difficult to get into that. It's easier for someone from Scotland to deviate than it is for someone to come into the Scottish. I think that's the one that seems to take people the longest to adjust to, for whatever reason. Yeah,
my Scottish accent is absolutely dreadful. Dougie's just put in the chat that he's a Fifer. So, well, there you go. What, is he saying that Fife is a hard accent to teach, Dougie?
He certainly seems to think so. Well, aside from your wonderful, wonderful work on as a voice coach, Dougie can apparently hardly do his own accent, so always worth bearing in mind.
Well, to be fair, that's quite true of me as well, because that way that I'm speaking right now is really sort of my professional voice, if you like. I mean, because I am Glaswegian, and so when I phone my mum like that, listen, by the way, just so you know, right, I've no forgotten where I've came from, right, Ma? I swear to Christ, I've no forgotten my roots, I promise you.
And then
she digs me up for it. She digs me up for it all the time.
When you do an interview, you go very sort of, you know, it's very very RP Scottish.
Well, my mum says to me, just don't get into that weird twang, that weird you sometimes get into this weird transatlantic twangy thing, and that's just no you. You need to still be you when you talk.
Aye.
And then so, but of course, because I work in elocution and things like that, if there just has to be a level of clarity that I am trying to have a delicate balance with. But I am hugely connected to my Glaswegian roots. I promise you, I love it. I'm proud to be Glaswegian. I swear to God, don't kill me.
No, I think there are lots of people, I think, that have sort of a similar sort of a tricky balance almost between different accents from different bits of their family, and it's like, how do I actually pronounce this word again? You see it written down in a book, and how do I say that out loud? What does that actually mean? You sort of struck a really interesting balance there, which I think is really cool. So alongside the voice coaching, which I think we've well and truly established you are stupendous at, alongside the voice coaching, I understand you are have worked on. I'm not entirely sure how best to describe it, because I think Yeah, but my point is that I think it's one of those things you never stop working on, is it? Because you're always talking about it and thinking about it. A short film is the point that I'm trying to get round to slowly and eventually.
Yes.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I wrote and directed a short film about 3 or 4 years ago, and that was something that just snowballed. I didn't actually set out to make a film and ended up making a film. And then because of that, I learned a lot from that process. I learned a lot about what not to do, primarily. And it made me really want to do another one. The process itself was quite exhilarating, and I was like, right, I want to do it again, but I want to do it with a budget, and I want to do it now having learned all of these things. So I sat down and wrote a script, but it's kind of been put on the back burner over and over again, and I feel like this poor script really needs to be resurrected and engaged with. And so my plan is, and I've made a kind of deal with myself and a promise to myself, that I will make it next year, come hell or high water. This film is getting made next year.
Fantastic.
So that's the plan, is to make it, and to make it with a budget, and it's a comedy this time, which is nice. It's a black comedy,
lovely.
but it's got humour in it, because the first film that I did was very bleak, and there was no lightness in it at all. And
Sounds like Danny's kind of thing.
Aye.
it just and those films have their place, but for me, I was like, no, I need to find a way to bring some humour into this as well. So so that's the plan.
That sounds lovely.
The bleak kind of films belong in the public voice chat, and the comedy and the sort of multifaceted ones on the void, above the plebs. Like you were saying about jack of all trades, master of none type thing, I'm gonna have to be really horrible and bog you down. Out of acting, writing, directing, coaching, what do you find the most rewarding, and why?
Well, it's always going to be acting first, isn't it? That's what I started with. That's what I'll always be an actor first. I'll always want to work as an actor first, because I just get so much joy out of it selfishly, and so I guess for my own personal reward, that is what I love. But there is also a certain reward that comes with coaching that I didn't really fully expect or appreciate until I started working with so many people. And when you see, the change that you're making for people, especially when it comes to things like confidence, or, them being able to speak, do public speaking, things like that, where they might have had an anxiety around public speaking and a lack of a confidence or whatever, and then now they actually look forward to it, and they enjoy communication, and they enjoy getting up there and going to events and speaking at events and things like that. It can be quite life-changing for some people, and that wasn't something that I was initially prepared for when I started that process. And so that's been a huge reward on a personal level, to see people achieve the goals that they set out to achieve.
I imagine it's very fulfilling. Yeah.
Massively so. And you work with people for a certain length of time, so it becomes quite personal, and you develop a personal investment with people and a relationship with people, and it's just lovely. It's just really, really nice to sort of see people find their voice and align into themselves. And it can get quite depthful and existential. I mean, people come to me for voice coaching and they're like, I wasn't prepared for this, Kirsty. This is not the road I thought I was going to go down with this here. Because people have tension that they were never aware of. They're not in the right breathing. So they're like, a lot of things come out of it that surprise people in many ways, and then it has a knock-on effect in other areas of their life. It brings them into an alignment. It gives them relaxation. Even just learning diaphragmatic breathing, and just that shift of breathing can be so helpful in so many areas, not just when it comes to your voice. And so I think things like that, can be quite life-changing.
I suppose sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, and you go.
No, I was just going to say, I suppose you're completely on the money with life-changing. It's one of those things that you never really think about it until you have to think about it, is how you communicate and how you talk, and putting the right words together and saying them in the right way and sort of thing. It's got to... Once you do take a step back and say, okay, let's not just do it, let's think about it, and let's take a step back and think, it becomes really a powerful tool that you've got sort of on hand, which is quite an amazing thing, really, I think.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, I think also just the connection that people make, and what I mean, I work in a very specific way. I work in a very intuitive way. And for me, you know, because we're using of ourselves and it is all kind of linked, body, mind, spirit, it's all connected. I'm kind of that coach, you know. Not a lot of people are. I'm that one. But what happens is, especially with breath, because everything starts with breath, and when you come into that breathing and that alignment and you're releasing and you're getting rid of tension, and actually what you're doing is getting out of your head and into your body. So you're getting away from thinking and coming into feeling, and especially with speaking, because speech is habit forming and it's physical in nature. And so what we're doing is shifting those habits and realigning, and so we want to do that through the body, utilising body and breath. And so it's a feeling process, and so I end up with all these little buzz phrases like feel it, don't think it, and it's all about discovery and arrival in my process, don't master and conquer, you know, stuff like that.
That's a common phrase in my house, actually. Don't think, just do. Is the process of don't overthink it, just do it. Just get stuck in and do something. Yeah. It's, and speaking of those interesting little sort of tidbits and stuff, is there a particular little fact or a particular little tidbit that you find it really interesting, or you find it really funny, or you really make sure to say it to everybody, or anything that sort of sticks out in your mind?
I mean, I think it's very much that about, you know, feel it, don't think it. And I think the thing about everything starting with breath as well. And I think the thing that I think other people find most interesting is how involved a process it can be, because people come and they think, oh, she's going to tell me a couple of little things and I'll be on my way and it'll be fine, it's all good. They don't realise that they're actually shifting habits of a lifetime, and that they're coming back into aligning themselves, and it's a much more depthful and personal process, even when you're just doing accent work. So even for actors who are coming to me just to add to their skill set and do accent work, you know, that in itself is just as involved in some ways. And I think that's always a surprise to people.
I mean,
I suppose it's like as if... sorry, go on, Dan.
Oh, sorry, mate. I mean, because like, with accents, like, you're in like the sort of beginning steps of like learning like a different language, as well as just like speaking differently, because it's like an accent comes along with a language, so it's a lot more than just, you know, oh, you just say ah instead of ooh. Sometimes, you know, it's a lot more fundamental, I would think, than people.
Yeah, and I think, well, turns of phrase. I mean, I tell you, I'm a lot more funny in Glaswegian than if I'm in RP, I tell you that. It's just the way things are phrased, but I think also where English is a second language for people, it's even a longer, more lengthy process for them, because rhythmically it's very different. So the musicality of the accent, the attitude of accent is another thing that we have to consider. You know, oral posture, things like that. So it is like learning a language in a way. You're absolutely right about that, and so it is rather involved.
Yeah,
that's really interesting. That thing you said about the musicality of a language, and it's something I'd never considered before, but. Yeah, obviously. Do you know what I mean? It's something that I've literally never considered before. I did an A-level in Spanish, for God's sake, and it's just something I never considered. Yeah, there is a different rhythm, and there is a different musicality to different languages and different dialects, even within English or within any other language. It's really interesting to think about.
Oh, massively. I mean, you compare and contrast two widely different, you know, accents, you know, from a Glaswegian accent to a London accent, you know, rhythmically they're very different, and even the attitude of accent is different, and so, you know, those things have to sort of be considered as well. And sometimes people can't get out of their own rhythm, so they can understand all the individual sound placements, and we could go on and on about phonetics and all that stuff, but as well, that shift of their own natural rhythm is another aspect to the process.
Just, it's interesting you say that. Is there like a particular sort of habit that's difficult to get? I mean, I don't know the majority of like clients that you teach, but is there like, if someone's like Glaswegian, is there a particular habit trying to teach them a different accent that they can't always quit?
Well, it usually what the biggest issue for people is what happens with tongue articulation and how we use. You know, like saying Glaswegian, right? So I went right into my Glaswegian, right? So what happens here with that, right? I only use like the middle of my tongue for everything, really. I'm not really using much else. It's gone into quite a uvula place as well. So the other thing with that is like it's F's instead of TH's, so thing. something, thing, with. It's all F's instead. So people who have that speech habit of trying to arrive at a TH or R placement where the R, retroflex R, has never been in operation, so they don't use it. And using that R placement, because that's the muscle, and the muscle can feel quite heavy at first and clunky, trying to work with that. So negotiating with tongue articulation is probably one of the biggest shifts that has to happen for people.
Definitely.
That's really interesting. It's it's you hear words of things like what's the word I've heard? Oral posture and things like that, which it sounds like nonsense, but then you actually start to think about it, and it does make sense. Your teeth, your tongue, your lips, they would all be in different positions for different accents, and it's such a funny thing to think about in a funny way.
Yeah, I mean, it's like with like received pronunciation, like I'll go into that now, like contemporary RP. The tongue isn't used a lot for, like, they drop R's a lot, so there, where, square, it's not there at all. You've got linking and intrusive R and stuff like that, but the tongue effectively is rather, it's lazy and light, and it moves very lightly, and the tip and the blade of the tongue work very lightly in its operation. It is in operation for certain placements, but then you come into Glaswegian and everything into the middle of the tongue. It gets used, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So your tongue's just working in a totally different way, and then I've went into a totally different placement. And tonally, there's a tonal shift there that you can hear immediately, right? So if I'm speaking like this, you can hear where my tone's gone, right? It's dropped right down. It's quite weighted, it's dropped right down. But then if I come into this placement, it's lifted up a little. Yeah. It's brighter, it's lighter, it's more effortless. It's just a complete shift.
It's just we're so angry.
Sorry,
we're just so angry all the time. You know, we're just no. I'll tell you what's happening. We're doing this and that's it, right? I mean,
no. What it is right, because we've actually got we've got a lot of forward and back. So that's why we get labelled angry and friendly at the same time.
Yeah.
Because we've got these nice open placements, like I is nice and open and at the back, and then we've got the shorter sharp vowels like ow and o and oohs that come right forward in the mouth. So we're doing a lot of backwards and forwards. So that's why we're labelled as both angry and friendly at the same time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been aggressively told I'll get you a drink. Like, shut up, come on, I'll get you a drink, like that. Just like, and it's like it's nothing but kindness and friendship, but it feels as if you might glass me if I refuse. But definitely.
It's quite amazing hearing you go back and forth so effortlessly between those two accents and dialects you're doing then. Is there one that, aside from your native sort of Glaswegian, is there one that you would consider yourself to be sort of most proficient in?
Yeah, probably going into the contemporary RP again, because I do it more than any other. Like I just did an audio book last week, and the whole thing, the majority of the narration was in this accent, and then I'd have to switch into Scottish voices, but not my own Scottish accent, like a De Vries and Galloway accent primarily, and that was weird, because to be sitting in this accent as the dominant accent for the majority, and then every so often you're popping out for a Scottish accent, and even although I'm Scottish, it's a Scottish accent that isn't mine. That was a little bit of a head melt, but I can sit in this accent rather comfortably and have whole full-scale conversations, mainly because I do it all the time. I work with it every single day now, because it's one that people want to learn the most. So, I mean, I could continue the rest of our conversation in this accent if you want.
It is something. It's just because I adore audiobooks, generally speaking, and you've just completely opened my mind to the thought that there probably are a lot of audiobook narrators that are voice coaches, or at the very least extreme students of voice coaches. Which, like, I just finished listening to a series of books called Rivers of London. And the audiobook narrator, somebody called Cobner Holbrook-Smith, he did these amazing voices, just so easily flicking back and forth between different types of dialogue and stuff. And it really is stunning to hear and impressive to consider the mastery of essentially your mouth, I suppose. Yeah. Which it really is impressive, I have to say.
Definitely. I'm gonna jump back in the conversation just a little bit. Was there, like, you say that you're you've got a short film in the works at the moment. Was there like a specific sort of catalyst for that specific idea that made you go, yeah, that's it, I've got it, that's what I'm going to sort of move forward with? Or had it been a long while?
Yeah, I mean, well, having made the other one, as I said, that was really bleak, and then I was like, right, I really want to write something funny, but I don't know if I can write funny. I don't know if I put the pressure on myself. I was like, oh my god, the minute you try to be funny, you're just not. Do you know what I mean?
It's all right. We're not very funny, and that hasn't stopped us yet.
So again, I actually started from this really dark place. I was like, well, what's a really difficult thing? Because I don't know. I just seem to have this sort of way of making things difficult for myself. I like to be really hard on myself and just make things difficult. So I was like, what's the most challenging thing to write a comedy about? Well, grief is not funny, right? So how do you make grief into something funny? Essentially. And I played around with different ideas, and then actually I became inspired by Jimmy White, the snooker player. And you're like, how do you get from that to Jimmy White? Well, my friend told me that there's an excerpt in his biography about when his brother died, and how they took the corpse from the funeral home and brought the corpse home for a one last night of drinking and playing cards.
Oh my god.
And that kind of formulated, and then they got so wasted that they had to call a taxi to come and pick the body up and take it back to the morgue. God. And I was like, this is perfect. I was like, that's going to be the sort of circumstances of which I'm going to create these characters and these circumstances, like situation out of. So that sort of became my almost situation, and then it just sort of spidered out from there into its own thing. So it now in no way reflects Jimmy White's story, but it has that little kernel of inspiration taken from that into these characters who are going through their own thing.
Yeah.
That's. I'm sorry, I completely was not prepared for that at all. It's just completely melted my brain. It's like, I'm sorry, what? They took a corpse out for a night of drinking? Christ!
Yeah.
Oh, crikey.
Well, it's it's a money saver, I suppose.
So you were saying earlier you take sort of quite a holistic approach to voice coaching and to sort of teaching people new accents, about like your voice is all of you, and every little bit of your personality sort of comes through in what you say. Is there a way that you sort of this is a strange question to ask because I'm not sure quite how I'm asking it, but is there a way that you would decide specifically how to get someone to that point of sort of holistically coaching them, or how do you decide how to work with a specific client, I suppose is what I'm asking, even though I know the answer?
Well, it's very instinctive and intuitive, because every person is unique and individual, and people learn in different ways. I mean, some people are really auditory and they find audio notes really helpful and audio guides really helpful. Some people are really visual, they need visual guides, and some people are very analytical. And so for me, like working with them, that takes a bit of negotiation. And I always start with relaxation. Everything starts with relaxation. The more relaxed you are, the more flexibility and range of movement we have around your articulators, the easier everything becomes. Anything else, we can't really have tension, because we're working with your muscles and we need everything to have that flexibility. So I sort of have a way of like introducing myself and my process to people, and I'll say to them, look, relaxation is key to everything I do. We get rid of judgment immediately, because judgment is tension filled and it's negative, and we want to just bring in an awareness, having an awareness of where you are but without judgment. And then also I find myself sort of saying to people quite a lot, because a lot of people come in and they're quite result motivated, they came to get results, they want results, and they want to get it right, but those things are outside of process. So again, something that I find myself saying a lot to people is that a result is an inevitability. It's born out of process. We arrive at results. So you have to kind of trust the process, trust yourself, go into that, and you will arrive at the results that you're looking for. But if you're outside and you're analysing and you're judging yourself and you're being hard on yourself because you didn't quite get it how you wanted to get it, that mostly comes from the accent practice. Elsewhere, it's easier to navigate when we're shifting when we're working in vocal production, for example, we're changing in something tonally, or if we're working towards presentation skills training or anything like that, those things are a little bit easier to sort of release yourself into, whereas the accent work, there's a sense of, I've got to get this accent right. If I don't get it right, then what's the point, and what am I doing? And it's like, well, we can't work that way. Well, I can't work that way, and I don't think it's helpful or effective for you to work that way. So the first couple of sessions are really about helping people to relax and just go into a discovery mode and allow themselves to discover and arrive, rather than try to master and conquer. I mean, if you think even about our use of vocabulary, if you think about how heavy and hard those words are, master and conquer, it's like, it's just it's not helpful. It's just filled with tension and work. I don't even like that word work. It's about effortless ease. We want to bring effortless ease to the process. So those are things that I do as a blanket general across the board for everyone. But then one-to-one, I really start to work with the person on how to best lead them to that point, how to get them to that point of ease, how to get them to that point of relaxation. And different things will work for different people, even in the way in which I explain things, because some people, they need a visual, or direction really helps. Sometimes direction of sound, that can be really useful for people. So it's figuring people out, and for me to then be adaptable and flexible to them. And then sometimes it's just accepting that I'm not always going to be the right coach for everybody, because personality clashes and different things like that. So 9 times out of 10 it works out really well, and I work really well with people. But occasionally, sometimes I'll feel it myself. I'm like, I'm not for you, and you're not for me. And there's just and I'll say that, and I'll be like, I think, here are some alternatives that I can suggest, because you've got to be honest. It's a very, very personal thing. Essentially, when you work with someone, especially one-to-one, and you're going to be seeing them once a week or whatever. But for the most part, it's that, just kind of for me to be as adaptable and flexible to the person that I'm working with, so that they get the best out of things. And I always encourage communication. So I'm like, if something's not working for you, if you're not feeling it, if I'm misdirecting you or whatever, you need to let me know, because that way we can have a communication about what you need. Because I need to be in line with your objectives the whole way through, because this is for you and this is your time. And so we have to be in agreement that we're leading you to where you want to go ultimately.
That's such a lovely way to put it. The results are achieved through progress. Results are inevitable, and progress is sort of how we get there. That's such a lovely way to think about it. I really like that.
It's all about the process itself, and again, that's about getting present, which is what I'm all about. You have to just be present with what's happening in that particular moment, and you'll arrive at the next moment and the next moment.
Lewis is going to use that. Lewis is actually just going to take that and be like, yes, well, I can't. What was it? Success is inevitable. Progress gets us there. I can't remember.
So
what it was.
a result is an inevitability. It's born out of process. So we have to become process motivated rather than result driven.
Yeah.
We have to be process driven. It's the same for acting, to be honest.
Yeah.
If you're in a scene with someone, you can't be thinking about how good is this scene going. How is this being received? How is this going to look on camera? Or does the director think I'm good? No, because then that's you just doing a scene. You're not in that moment, to moment, truth telling, listening, responding, in the moment. And so it's the same. It's the same there. You've got to be just in it, completely present in the moment, and that's what's so exhilarating.
Dougie just said writing as well. And that's absolutely true. You can't be worrying about, is this script any good? It's more about, what are the characters feeling, whether they, are doing what they're supposed to be doing, what their motivations are and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's on that same vein. There's this. I think it was a brilliant quote from. I think it was Stephen King. It's I didn't expect the good guys to win in Salem's Lot. I didn't, and then I wrote it, and they did.
Yeah.
I think that's about being at the truth of the moment and being like, yeah, well, let's just get through it. Let's just make the progress. Keep going.
Yeah, because that's discovery, right? That's discovery and arrival. You make a
Yeah.
discovery in the moment, and that makes you arrive at something that you weren't expecting, and that's really exciting. And then there are life parallels with that, because in life, that's a more exhilarating way to live, is just to kind of discover through living and through life, like, how did I get here? What on earth is happening? Isn't this cool? Like, wow.
Yeah. One of my
A million years ago, there was some bacteria, and now I'm here in my house.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Like, what?
one of my favorite writers, George R.R. Martin, says that he writes like a gardener. So like he had this like huge plan for Game of Thrones, and a specific character in it was just going to kill everyone and let be an absolute arse, and eventually,
as you do.
Yeah,
as you do.
he eventually became
Yep.
one of the most complicated and nice people in the entire series. So it's like, he did something that he wasn't expecting, and it just took him to that place, because he didn't say, well, this needs to happen, there needs to be big explosions and stuff. It was more about the characters leading the way and the truth leading the way, rather than artificial stuff. So
Indeed.
yeah.
Oh, that got very deep.
No, I did. Well, you did say it's like, I don't want it to get too deep, and then it's like, well, the truth.
Listen, I'm sorry, that always happens with me. It's a reflection. I can't help it. Ask anybody that talks to me, they're like, oh, here she goes again. It's all deep and meaningful again. Nice, Kirsty.
You're at the McDonald's drive-through. It's like, ma'am, I'm just trying to give you your food here. Can we call it a day?
What
I don't
is
need to know
a
about the
burger?
metaphysics.
Really?
Come on.
Oh man. I think we're on to our last question, and it's probably going to be quite a deep question. In terms of like inspiration and stuff, can you like give us a rogues gallery of any writers, directors, or creatives that inspired you to act, to write, to teach?
Oh, inspired me to write, direct. Oh my God. We could be here all day.
It could be from anyone at all.
I tell you what, I'll talk a tiny little bit about where I get a lot of my inspiration from, and then I'll talk about people that I've worked with that I think are really on it and are brilliant, right? So just very briefly, because I think people who know me know that I'm a massive Rocky fan, right? And nobody's expecting that from an actor or a writer, right? They're like, what are we talking about? What? So to the point where my dog's name is Adrian. Her full name is Adrian Balboa. That is my dog's name.
Wow.
So that I could shout, yo, Adrian, in the street, and no one would think I was crazy for doing so. But no, like, I discovered Rocky when I was really young, and yeah, it was when I was going through a bit of a tough time, and I think it's one of those films, and then the franchise itself, there's a lot of inspiration in it in terms of even just how it got made itself, and that whole underdog mentality, and how people just want their opportunity to see if they can achieve something or not.
Yep.
Everybody can identify with that. Everybody just wants to go the distance, and so there's always something else that I can sort of garner from those films that to me is inspiring, when you get to Balboa and he's talking about the stuff in the basement, man, my basement is full, truly, it's magnificent. So I do find, Sylvester Stallone rather inspiring with that, what he managed to do with that, because I think it's one of those that has just stood the test of time over and over and over again, to the point where he's now doing a director's cut on Rocky IV.
Wow.
And he's redoing it, and it's incredible. So I know that's a bit out of left field, but there you go.
No.
In terms
That's the thing about inspiration, is it just hits you in the middle of nowhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, and they're
Like,
not.
wow, look at that lamppost. And then you've written a play.
Then you've written the Chronicles of Narnia.
But so I mean, and he says himself they're not sports films, they're dramas.
Yeah.
And I think especially the first one for me, it has so much grit and life in it, and so yeah. But I'm lucky as well as an actor that I've gotten to work with people several times. Like, people ask me back, which is always reassuring. It's nice to be asked back.
Certainly.
And I'd say that I'd probably like to talk about people that are ones to watch, people that you need to keep your eye out for. Like, I
shall take some notes then.
Yeah, well, I really love James Price, and it's dangerous, and I don't know if I should say this out loud and admit this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because it's dangerous, because basically with James, I believe in his work so much that if he was to ask me to do something, he wouldn't have to tell me what it was, he wouldn't have to finish the sentence. I'd be like, I'm there.
Wow.
You don't have to say, Kirsty, this is what it is and this is what you'll do. I'd be like, no, you asked me to do something, it's yours, you've written it, I'm there.
Yeah.
100%. I just think he's brilliant, and I think he's definitely one to be on the watch for. The first thing of his that I worked on was actually through something he'd written, Dropping Off Michael. It came through Jump Cut, and he'd written it, but Zam Salim was directing it, and I'd worked with Zam before on a feature called Up There. And so was brought in that way, and I was really excited because it meant I was getting to work with Brian McCarthy, who I just think is amazing, and I was excited to learn from him. But that was my first introduction to James's writing, and then I got the opportunity to submit a self-tape for Boys Night, and honestly, again, I've never been so stressed out about submitting a tape because I really wanted to do it. And, you know, to the point where I was asking my mate Dave, who was producing it, going, do I need to do this again, or I'm not sure about this tape? And I don't normally get like that about self-tapes and things. I kind of, once it's in, it's done and that's it. But I think for me it was just something I really wanted to do. And I think there was a slight sort of anticipation around it because I knew it was based on events from his actual life, and I was playing a version of his mother, which was like, I still don't know what she thinks, to be honest. I'm hoping that she's not wanting to hunt me down and kill me for it. I'm like, oh no. But it was brilliant because I got to work with Cameron Jack, and who's just a phenomenal actor and a brilliant guy, and then Kyle Gordon, who that's an up and coming young talented boy. Say boy, he's getting older by the minute. He's grown up now.
72.
But so that was just brilliant to be part of. So I'm keen to see what he does, and I'll always support everything he does because I do think that he's very. You can tell that. Well, I can sort of see now, and he's writing like, yeah, that's James Price writing. That's him. That's unique and special and beautiful. And then to go stylistically completely in a different direction, there's a visual artist, Rachel McLean, that I've done a lot of voice work for. She's another one that would just say, can you do this? And without telling me what it is, I would be there in a heartbeat just to do it. I've also been in front of the camera for her on a short film called The Weepers, and in a feature film, Make Me Up, which she directed. But she does a lot of her own performance, so I would provide voice and she would lip sync to the voice, but her work is very uniquely hers, and wonderful and beautiful and brilliant, and completely tonally and stylistically different from James, but again it's so authentically her that it's just fabulous. So I'd say within that, and then there are just certain people that I've loved to work with that if they ask me, like Robert and Ian from Burniston, if they ask me to do something, I wouldn't ask why. This is dangerous, just turning around and saying, I don't even need to know what it is, guys. I'll be there. If you need me, I'm there. But that comes from having that previous experience with them, and believing in them, and the fact that they've shown belief in me to have worked with me before. And it's nice when you can develop those kinds of working relationships and personal relationships as well. They become friends, and that's just a lovely, lovely thing when that happens.
Absolutely. Well,
yes, I think we've managed to get through all of our questions just about.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, I mean, thanks so much for coming on and
much.
listening to our ramblings. What we normally do now is we go to the shilling section of the podcast and just shamelessly
and
read
we
out.
mercilessly shill everything that we have and do.
Absolutely. Have you got any shilling that you would like to do, Kirsty, before we?
Any shilling of what you mean, like stuff
Just
that people
anything.
should keep an eye out of me? You mean?
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
Yep, just plug
Is that-
away. Plug away.
At the moment, you'll catch me on Guilt. I was lucky enough to be in that. That's directed by Pat Harkins, who I've also had the privilege of working with twice. It's brilliant if you've not seen it. You can catch Annika as well and catch up, I think, I was in episode 1 of that, if you want to catch it. You can visit my website, although I'm fully booked right into the new year for coaching. I don't have any spaces till January.
Fantastic.
But, there's that. And, I will be I'll be posting information about the short as and when, and starting to make moves on doing that short. So keep an eye out for that.
Brilliant.
Okay, good stuff.
Lewis, if we get any shilling...
We always have a bit of shilling. Go on, let's keep it light. Let's keep it quick.
Yeah.
Do the compressed version.
We're on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all that rubbish. Give us a like, give us a comment, give us a wee cheeky smile, and off you go. We want to thank our wonderful, wonderful patrons, as we do every week, because they keep the lights on here.
Void Towers,
Void Tower,
which is my house and Danny's house. Yep.
So I'll read out their wonderful names. Chloe.
Thank you.
Darius.
Thank you.
Peter.
Thank you.
Aditya.
Thank you.
Darius.
Thank you.
I've said Darius. Natalie.
Thank you.
And Dougie, who's in the chat.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. Dougie is in the chat. He's been listening along live. If you would like to support the show, go to patreon.com/shoutingintothevoid. You can see what we do, and you can support us a little bit there. And I think that is everything now. So we can say thank you very much again to our patrons, and thank you very much to Kirsty for joining us and answering our ridiculous and complicated and stupid questions.
Yes.
No, thank you for a lovely chat. It's been lovely.
Brilliant. Well, you don't need to lie, Kirsty. Come on, you can
Hey. It was awful. Christ, the pain. No, honestly, brilliant. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much for listening and watching, folks, and we will see you next time.
Indeed we will. Thank you very much for listening.